we're going to look at another way that I could use equations to find a missing number. If I take a look at these words, I've got a fraction. And in my original fraction, I tell you that the numerator is 1 smaller than the denominator. So the numerator, if that had been 1 smaller, then the denominator could have been written as such. The next thing that I tell you is, if I take both the numerator and the denominator and I increase them by 2 units, then I'm going to get another fraction. So if I add 2 to my numerator, I'm going to get x plus 1. If I add 2 to my denominator, I'm going to get x plus 2. And I tell you, once I have done this, there's going to be an increase of a 12th. In other words, what I've actually done is I have said that the new fraction minus the original fraction gives me a difference of a 12th. You can see very easily, without too much trouble, I've managed to make an equation for myself so that I can find what were the numbers that I could have originally had in the numerator and the denominator of my first fraction. Let's do this by first solving for x. In the LCD, I have 12 and x plus 2 factors. Using the LCD to get rid of the denominator, the first denominator had a factor of x plus 2, so I must times its original numerator by the other 2 factors. Looking at the second factor, I didn't have a 12 factor and I didn't have an x plus 2 factor, and so those must be times by the original numerator. And then lastly, on the right-hand side, I only had a 12 factor, and so my original numerator of 1 must be times by x and x plus 2. In my next step, in order to solve this equation, I need to multiply out my brackets. My first term would then be 12x squared plus 12x. The second term needs to have the brackets multiplied out first and then times by minus 12. And just to remind you of this process, I'm going to do it in 2 steps. So the brackets, when I multiply them out, give me x squared plus x minus 2. And then lastly, on the right-hand side, by distributing the x into its bracket, I get x squared plus 2x. Continuing to distribute the minus 12 into its bracket, I get that my result is going to be 12x squared plus 12x minus 12x squared minus 12x plus 24 is equal to x squared plus 2x. Well, there are a number of terms over here that can cancel out, and so simplified, we can see that our expression can be very easily written as x squared plus 2x minus 24, and that is all equal to 0. This can be solved very easily using your trinomial method, and you would have found that your first bracket would have been when you had x plus 6, your second bracket x minus 4. And so my 2 possible solutions are when x is going to be equal to minus 6 or when x is equal to 4. Now what we were looking for originally were numbers, and numbers can be positive numbers or negative numbers. And so that x equals minus 6 is definitely a possible answer. Let's go back and take a look at our original fraction to see what our answers could have been. As the solutions from my equation represent x, the first possible number that I could have got for x is minus 6. If I take minus 6 and I minus 1, I get minus 7. The second possible set of numbers that I could have had was when x was 4, and the other number was 1 less, so that was 3. Please remember what you've done over here is you have not worked out minus 7 divided by minus 6 so that you got 7 over 6. You said if the one number was minus 6, the other number had to be 1 less, which is minus 7. So those minuses are not to be cancelled. The one number was minus 6. The one smaller was minus 7. Or the first number was 4, and the second number, which was one smaller, was 3.